Daddies were daddies, mamas were saints. Preachers were preaching, you could take to the bank. Kids played outside up until it turned dark. The world turned slow, and you could smoke in a bar. When people started asking me before we actually started working on this album, when they knew that we were going back in the studio, I had a lot of people ask me, well, what kind of album is it going to be? And is it going to be really straight ahead country, or is it going to be more bluesy, or is it going to be more, what is it going to be? And I said, well, it's just going to be a Travis Tritt album. And I'm going to try to incorporate all of the different things that I've always done into that album, which I have to show my first love, which is the straight ahead country, traditional country. I love that. That's always been my center. But I was also just as much influenced by Leonard Skinner, the Allman Brothers, that type of Southern rock. And then heavily influenced by blues, you know, people like Muddy Waters and B.B. King, and later on Clapton and Jimi Hendrix, people like that. Stevie Ray Vaughan, huge influences. And then I love bluegrass. I grew up, obviously, loving bluegrass, going to bluegrass festivals with my uncle.
In Marietta?
All over the South.
Yeah.
All over the South. And take all that and then sprinkle a little bit of Southern gospel over the top of it, and that's pretty much my influences. So I've always tried to show a little bit of all of those different influences anytime I do an album.
Yeah.
Even though I had recorded, you know, some live albums, and I'd done some things like that, but I hadn't been back in the studio because I was more focused on just doing the touring.
Right. You got the hits. You got the catalog.
Exactly. My manager, he really got me to thinking about, okay, look, you're at a point in your career where you really don't have anything to prove, but you still have the opportunity to draw in new people and also feed your audience that's been with you for a long time by just providing content. And that really made me start thinking about recording a new album for the first time in a very long time.
As you've been out doing some shows, have you felt comfortable enough in the places that you've been going that, you know, you're okay? I mean, I know some have been solo, so I guess that makes things a little bit easier.
Yeah, when most of the shows we've done have been solo acoustic, and we've tried to do, in every one of them, we've tried to do, you know, social distancing, you know, masks if they're required. But sometimes, even though the best, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, you know, when you have an audience that is hungry for live music and they've been cooped up for that long, sometimes it's very difficult, even though you have the restrictions in place and all these different things. I know we did a drive-in show in Athens last year.
Oh, was that with the new amphitheater?
Yes, where it's being built.
Right.
Yes, correct. And of course, you know, we went to great lengths we went out, we drew out in the parking lot, you know, a 14-foot space around each vehicle, and people were supposed to bring their lounge chairs out and do that. And of course, by the end of the show, there's no way that you're going to be able to keep those people that are so hungry for that. I mean, they were coming right down to the front, and you know, it's difficult for an artist to deal with that, because you realize that, you know, okay, we are, you know, COVID is definitely a real thing, and it's something that you worry about for your audience members. But at the same time, you realize that they are so hungry for this music, and so hungry because nothing takes the place of live music. The biggest reason I got involved in this business in the first place was because I absolutely love the whole idea of spreading my music to as many people as possible in a live venue performance.
The energy.
There's nothing like that. It is exactly energy. It's a big ball of energy that I've described as, it's like a beach ball that gets kicked back and forth between the stage and the audience. And the more fired up they get, the more fired up we get as performers. And it's, you know, I've done a bunch of different drugs in my life, and there is nothing that comes close to that, really. I mean, it's just a great, great experience. And it is truly that. It's more than just going and listening to music. It's truly, live concerts are truly an experience. And they're things that people remember for the rest of their lives.
With these shows that you've been doing, have you been playing any of the new stuff? Or I know it's kind of, you know, you just released the first single last fall, and then now the second single next week, I think, and then
Yes.
the album's May. But have you been kind of giving a little sneak peek of?
I have. As a matter of fact, I did 2 shows in Kentucky last weekend. And that was the first time, they were solo acoustic, but that was the first time that I had done Smoke in a Bar. And I announced it, of course, you know, I told people I had new album coming out, and the next single was going to be this. And every time that I've ever done that throughout my career, I've always noticed that if you play a song, if you tell people you're going to play a song off the new album that they haven't heard, they tend to listen more intently, and they're more moved by it.
Because they're getting a special
Exactly.
sneak peek. Kind of.
Exactly. And when I got to that line about when we saw the flag flying, we all gave a damn, the crowd just erupted both nights. So that's always a good sign. I use that to kind of gauge where the song is going to go and what it's going to do. And I think it really talks about a lot of the things that, one of the reasons I fell in love with the song the first time I heard it was because I've heard for the last probably 10, 15 years with regards to country music, I've heard people say, man, it would be nice if country music sort of told the stories that it used to tell, or that country music sounded more like country music rather than pop music. And I hear that everywhere I go. I get it all the time on social media. I get it from people in person. And then I think with all the things that have happened in the past year, there's been a lot of people that are sort of nostalgic for the days when there wasn't so much division and unrest in our country. And so I think that's where this song really comes into play, as far as it talks about all this. It's just talking about, man, wouldn't it be nice if the world moved a little bit slower than what it seems to be moving right now? And I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to that. At least I hope so.
Well, and you know, in Stand Your Ground, which I thought might have been about something else until I listened to it, and I was like, oh, this is really just more about being yourself.
Yes.
Standing your personal ground as you know, who you are, who you've become, who you're going to, you know, remain.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And when listening to that, it made me think of how, you know, there are these young guys out there like, you know, Morgan and Luke Combs and you know, and you're someone who's been doing this for 3 decades, you know, you and the class of '89, you
Yes.
know? And when you look at those new guys, you know, what would you say to them as far as remaining true to who they are, like navigating that path between, you know, remaining true to who you are, but then also you've got an audience that, you know, might want to hear what you have to say, but also might not, you know?
Sure. I think it's all about, well, I can just relay my personal experience. When I was first getting started, the first 2-3 singles that I did were big records, and they did extremely well, and they fit into that country music mold. And then I came out, I think my 4th single was a song called Put Some Drive in Your Country, which had all these rock guitars on it, and it lent itself more to the Southern rock influence that I had. And man, I took all kinds of grief for that because radio didn't like it. It's too rock for country. He's trying to be something that we don't accept, or he's trying to be something that he's not, or this, that, and the other. And then they called me all these different names. They said, well, he must be hard to get along with. He must be a rebel, a renegade. Some of them just actually came out and said it. He must be an asshole. And then they hit me with the one that stung the worst, and that was outlaw. And everybody used that word outlaw in a very, very negative connotation. It wasn't meant as a tribute to the outlaws that had come before me. And I was really starting to get self-conscious about it. It was really starting to bother me until I met Waylon Jennings. And when I met Waylon Jennings, I met him at the Omni in Atlanta. We were doing a show together. And I met him backstage. And as I was getting ready to leave, I was the last one. I had a small group, people with me. And as I was getting ready to leave, I put my hand on the doorknob and he said, Hoss, wait a minute, I want to talk to you for a second. Come here. And me? And he calls me back in. He said, sit down, I want to talk to you for a second. He said, I've been hearing all the things that they've been saying about you in the press and at radio and some of the record labels in Nashville. He said, let me just tell you this. He said, all the things that they're saying about you is exactly the same things that they said about me and about Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash and Hank Williams Jr. and Chris Christopherson and David Allan Coe and all these other people. And he said, let me ask you this. Are your records still selling? And I said, yeah, they're selling very well. He said, good. He said, people still coming to see your shows? I said, yes, sir. Every one of them are sold out. He said, that's all that matters. He said, remember this. He said, all these people that are saying these things about you in a negative way, they get their music for free. He said, the people that should matter to you are the people that go out and work hard 40, 50, 60 hours a week, every week, to put food on the table for their families. And they're willing to spend a certain amount of that money, that hard-earned money, to go out and buy your music and occasionally pay for concert tickets when you come into their town to play live. He said, as long as those people are responding, these other people don't matter. And I thought, man, it was like, my mind exploded then. It was an epiphany because he was exactly right. And so I told that story to Channing Wilson and Wyatt Durrett before we wrote Stand Your Ground. And both of those guys said, man, we got to write that. We've got to write that because that's such a great story. So that song is basically directed at the Nashville establishment, the record labels, all these people that try to claim they have a crystal ball and that they know exactly how to do this. And they come out and sign these artists. Oh, we love what you do. We love what you're doing. And as soon as they get them signed, okay, now we want you to change this or change that. And that's always been something that I think any artist that wants to do things their own way And especially if you've had the opportunity to play in bars and clubs and like I did for so long, you know who your audience is, and you know what they will and will not accept from you as an artist. So if you've got that already, then you don't really need somebody to come in and try to change your program. Just stick with that. And I know it's difficult to do. It's like swimming upstream. But at the end of the day, I think artists that have the tenacity to be able to do that are the artists that tend to last longer, because they're not affected by fads or trends or whatever. That's just, here's who I am, accept it or not. But this is me. And I'm not going to be something that I'm not. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to be truthful with you, which, if you think about it, that's really what country music has always been, is 3 chords and the truth. They say we've come a long way, but I say it's a little bit too far from when the world turned slower and you could smoke in a bar.